vacation. You're on vacation and he's working.
Thank you. We're called the school board, special school board meeting of Tuesday, July 16th, 2024 is called into order. Doing the invocation and the pledge this evening would be Ms. Benoit.
Thank you, Dr. Trahan. Lord, be with us during this meeting. In dealing with the agenda at hand, may we treat each other's opinions with respect. May we learn how to reject ideas without rejecting people and share visions, although we may not share the same means. May this meeting be for each of us an opportunity to be servants to the people that we represent. We humbly ask this in your name. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Ms. Benoit. A reminder, board members, if somebody goes the next day to listen to the tape of the meeting, if your mic is not on, they can't hear us. So we can hear each other in the room because we're sitting in the same room and we don't notice it sometimes. But please, when you're speaking, try to make sure that your mic is turned on. Roll call, Ms. Burnett.
Yes, ma'am. Mr. Michael Lagarde.
Here.
Mr. Gregory Harding. Mr. Matthew Ford.
Here.
Mrs. Debbie Benoit.
Here.
Mr. Don Crowdis.
Here.
Dr. Bud Kluche.
Here.
Mr. Roger Dale Dehart.
Here.
Dr. Maybelle Trahan.
Here.
And Mr. Dane Vazan.
Here.
Madam President, you have a quorum.
Thank you. Item 5 on our agenda, superintendent's agenda.
Okay, item A1 is matter pertaining to Act 311, 2024, compensation of teachers and other school employees. The recommendation is that the board approve and accept the adjustments to employee job descriptions and supplemental stipends for the Terrebonne Parish School District in compliance with Act 311 of the 2024 legislative session and the Louisiana Department of Education's new evaluation system, Louisiana Educator Advancement and Development System leads, effective for the 2024-2025 school session.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Dehart, second by Mr. Ford. Any public comment? Mr. Dehart.
No, ma'am. I think it's in order and it's very well needed, and it's going to focus on student achievement. So that's why I'm supporting it.
Mr. Ford.
I just want to make it clear that this is something that is resulting from Act 311 from this year's legislative session. It's not something that we came up with ourselves. We're just making sure we're in adherence, but it is a good program, and it does compensate our teachers and provide for a better education for our students. Thanks.
That's right.
Any other board members? Public comment? Oh, I did that already, sorry. Any objections?
You want me to, would you like me to
Mr. Ogeron has some comments?
expound on it? Yeah. Okay. All right, so, board members, in your possession is this packet here. This packet has an explanation. I'd like to kind of read through some of the points in this, I guess, points of interest page here, and then kind of share with you which job descriptions are going to change as a result of Act 311, how they're going to change, and also some of the stipends that we're kind of creating to address some of the aspects of 311, okay? So with that said, just for the public's sake, this, as the two board members expressed just a little while ago, this is in result of legislation enacted this summer and signed by Governor Landry within the last few weeks. So it provides districts with no money to accomplish this task of paying teachers. It reinforces the previously enacted requirement that teachers receive at least 45 minutes of unencumbered time each day or the weekly equivalent for planning. Now, for everyone's sake, particularly the teacher group that we met with, we talked about what unencumbered means, okay? Unencumbered means unencumbered from students. So when they are encumbered, meaning they're covering a class during their planning period, it says this: if teachers are not afforded planning time, they must be paid for it at their hourly rates of pay based on their individual salaries. So that would be different for every teacher, depending on their step in pay and their degree. So, structured planning, however, we call it structured planning, when we have unencumbered time, but it's with a purpose, such as data analysis, lesson curriculum review, faculty, business occasionally, professional development. Those things are unencumbered, but they're still part of the job description, okay? And wouldn't be required for payment. The next bullet says this. Part of the law says it changes the law to provide that salaries paid for a teacher or other certified employee covers duties specifically listed in their job descriptions. So what we did, we took job descriptions and we made them as accurate as possible based on what teachers had been doing. Like, we didn't add any responsibilities. These are just the things that we've encompassed that they have already done. So we included that in their job description. So, if you will, we can turn to the teacher job description tab, and I'll show you kind of what we've changed and what it looks like. I think I saw a member of the ERC here. She may have just, yeah, we have a couple of people who are on our employee representative committee. We've met with them, we've discussed this with them, and I think the understanding was well received of the information. Thank you. So all the blue is new verbiage to their job description. The majority of it reflects the new evaluation tool that we are going to be required to use this year. So the job description mirrors the evaluation tool. So we match the components of that with this job description. So that's where the majority of the new verbiage is from, the new job description, the new evaluation tool, okay? The only thing really specifically about Act 311 comes along in section or component number 5, where it says professional responsibilities. See that section there? So in that area, you have a series of things that we think are just expectations that teachers do and not really part of this Act 311 compensation package. So it's an open bullet that says open house. Well, that's something teachers do without having to get paid for it, open house. Parent conferences, meet and greets. You know, they're going to have these meet and greets and orientations in the next week or so. That's part of their job description. Student awards, academic and athletic. SBLC meetings. We have SBLC meetings that may be during planning time. That's part of the job. Because it's about kids and bettering kids and making, you know, avenues for kids to be successful. Dual enrollment FAFSA meetings, if that applies. So those are the things we added that we feel that teachers are already doing and made it part of their job description where it wasn't there before, okay? So if it's part of the job description, which is what the next bullet says, on the front points of interest page, it says, if employees perform duties outside of their written job description, things outside of what I just mentioned, the board is required to pay such an employee an additional $30 per hour net. Okay, now finance, Becky and her staff have come up with a number which is $34 an hour gross, which is a net of $30 an hour. So that's kind of what we're going to pay for. Anytime they miss or do anything in addition to their job description. Okay, if it's during their planning, it's hourly rate. Outside of job description duties, $30 an hour. Okay? Let me just kind of go through this with you real quick. Just to give you an example, what are some examples of paid activities teachers can do? So teachers may miss a planning time. They have to cover a class. They're encumbered. You have to pay them their hourly rate. Okay? If they do family learning nights, we pay them at a rate of $30 an hour. Typically, that's done through Title I, and it's pre-planned, and the money's there for that specific event. They may have faculty members that do graduation ceremony activities. Now, I'll show you something in a minute that we're going to pay people just to do that, but if any additional people are required, we'll pay them $30 an hour. Additional chaperones for activities for clubs, prom, homecoming, additional helpers, PBIS activities after school. Schools may even have a session where they're creating assessments or teacher collaborations after school, $30 an hour. So we're in favor of this. We think this is a good thing. That part of it's really not something we are opposed with at all. If you turn to the section that says stipends, and I want to commend the staff real quick. Everybody here, in a short turnaround, put these job descriptions together with great discussion and scrutiny and really precision, I guess, with all these coordinations of different tools. And one of the things we also did, we came up with a supplemental stipend schedule, which is right here. So each school is going to have a network manager. The network manager's responsibility is to troubleshoot technology problems. We're going to tier it based on the number of kids. So tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. Every school's going to have an SBLC coordinator. That's one person at a tiered salary or stipend. That's for the year. Okay, so this person would get a stipend, not $30 an hour in addition to the stipend. The stipend would cover their work for the duties of that position. We paid nothing before for that. So this is an incentive for teachers to really do some work that they were doing without compensation. Sometimes they were getting free planning periods. We're going to do away with planning periods and go to the stipend. Okay, we want them teaching. High schools have an activity coordinator. I'm not going to read them all, but you can see we have a designated job and a stipend attached to it that's going to cover a lot of things that teachers do. Okay, so that's part of the recommendation is this salary or supplemental stipends. That's going to be in our salary book. So we're going to put that in our salary book right up in here. We're going to add this page once this is approved to the salary book at the end where it has club stipends and support stipends. We're going to list all of these here. Okay? So the next thing, last couple of things, I'll say this. If you turn the page, it says that employees who are classified as non-exempt. These include paraprofessionals, school secretaries, payroll clerks, food services, custodians, maintenance department employees. They don't fall in this because if they work over, you pay them overtime. Okay, so that's how those positions will be compensated. And then lastly, Act 311 does not prohibit the continued payment of supplements for coaching or other supplements like club sponsors that we already have in place already. Okay? So what we're going to do, and I attach that as well, for those positions, we're going to add a coaching job description and a coaching contract as well as for every club sponsor. They're going to have a job description, list their duties, what they should be doing for that sport or club, and a contract that they're going to sign. And that'll cover those coaches for that supplement that we're looking at in the budget tonight to compensate coaches with additional monies. Okay, so in a nutshell, that's Act 311 and how we need to respond. The main reason we're responding as a board tonight is because of the change in job descriptions. Like, that's the main reason. We have all these job descriptions that are changing as a result to LEADS, which is the new evaluation tool, and the 311 component. So that's teacher, regular ed teacher, special ed teacher, early childhood teacher, elementary counselor, secondary counselor, librarian, and our administrators. That's the job descriptions we're changing. Okay? Any questions about this? Yes, sir.
The only question I have is about the 45 minutes of unencumbered time each day. So if a teacher, if that time is not allotted or allowed, who determines that? Is it because they are assigned a specific task during that 45 minutes? Or is it because that's somehow taken up in another manner?
Right.
How does that work?
Okay, so I've neglected to mention the process for that.
Okay.
Good question, thank you. So in here, Dr. Cloutier, we have a form. It's called the approval form. Okay, so there's a tab with the approval form. This is going to be a Google form. So it's either done prior to the event or post-event. So if it's prior to, that means they're asking for approval to get paid for something they foresee, obviously coming up. A collaboration, I'm chaperoning this event. They'll fill out the form. The form will have all this information you see here, is gonna go to their building level administrator for approval. That principal will approve it or deny it with an explanation why or why not. Send it to one of our staff members for a secondary approval and a funding source. It could be a Title I funding source, it could be a school funding source, or a general fund source of payment. We'll know that here. So we'll set up the funding source here. If it's done after the fact, the same thing applies. They fill it out after the fact. I lost my planning time on this day for this reason, and the administrator must give them an explanation as to will they be compensated or not. More than likely, they will if it's not something that they chose to do. Okay? And they will not be coerced to, hey, we want you to volunteer. It's, if you miss your planning, you will get compensated, if it's not something in the job description. Okay? Yes, sir, Mr. Ford. I'm sorry.
Two points. First, my first question, you sort of alluded to, is this, where does the requirement come from? Is it a requirement of a administrator, or is it an opportunity for volunteer also? Because if it's a requirement, can a teacher or an employee elect not to take on that duty?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So they can elect not to, and then
Yes, sir.
they just won't.
And I think that's the key word, required, right?
Okay.
Yes.
So the second question is, and you sort of alluded to it before, if it's an extracurricular activity of a group within a school that has their own funding or their own budget, does the funding for that person come from that activity or that group? that
Yes,
organization?
our rule of thumb, if it's an event that's gonna be for profit, where they're gonna be making money at a gate or something, the school will pay that extra person. Now, if you notice, that on our stipend list, and I didn't kind of get into all of them, we have a stipend for even prom sponsors. That takes a lot of work. And we don't want to say we're not having prom because we have to pay. We need to have prom, we need to have homecoming events, graduation events. So anybody in addition to that would be on the school's dime
Okay.
if they need them.
So can an administrator say, if it's football team, they need someone, can the administrator say, okay, I'll provide you 2 people, but since the school has to pay for it, it's gonna come out of football's budget?
They can ask for a request, but more than likely, yes.
Okay.
Yes. But that's the kind of thing we want to compensate for, without going overboard, so we'll have to have final approval on that here. Yep,
Thank you.
it's a good question.
Mr. DeHart.
I know you briefly told us about funding. Since the state is not funding any of these requirements, where is the funding coming from besides Title I?
General fund or school funds?
Okay,
Yes, sir.
I just want to clear that up in my mind. Thank you.
Mr. LaGore.
Okay, now, like the network manager, are we gonna pay them monthly, or that a stipend will be broken down?
Okay, I don't know that, Mr. Lagarde. Does anybody, Becky, you know that offhand? It'll be in their checks, divided out 12 months.
Also, he said the school, will the schools have money to pay this? Cause you said the school, will they have money in their budget to take on these new fees?
Some will, some won't. Some will, some won't. We don't see the schools having to pay a whole lot. High schools, perhaps, if they need people for big events like a graduation or a prom. But all those events typically are money-making that they can take out of the earnings for that event to pay the few people the $30. It'd be, doing the math quick, it'd be a few $100s, maybe at most. Hopefully they're making that. And as always, we are here to support if needed for schools that are in different financial states than others. And we have a disparity. There's no doubt about it. Some schools have way more just general funds than others because they're able to make more money for whatever reason. One main reason why, I'll tell you, and we all, is because of before and after care. Those schools that have that generate more money than others. That's just the way it is.
Well,
Yeah, yes, sir.
Okay, my last question, can one person do more than one position? Cause I like look on this list and I see like one person could do 3 or 4 things.
Perhaps.
Just going-
So our advice to principals is to spread the duties and responsibilities as best as possible. We talked about that last week. And we're gonna kind of ask them questions. If it's the same person doing, we want every position to be open nominations. They're gonna select it even though it's nomination process, but every year we want to open it up and not just pick the same person over and over again, unless it's a person that really knows that job very well from year to year. But we like to spread it, just like coaching, it's almost like having a cap on it. We don't have a cap, but we want it to kind of have opportunities for multiple people to earn some money and perform these jobs for the schools.
Mr. Crowder?
Yeah. Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see her. Ms. Benoit?
So, most of these supplemental stipend positions are self-explanatory as far as responsibilities are concerned, but the SBLC position, what are the responsibilities of that individual?
And Sandra, would you mind elaborating on, or Monica, or Cheryl? Typically, would you mind, Ms. LaRose? SBLC chairperson. While she's getting up here, typically it's heavy in the elementary. It's about coordinating some of the screenings and the paperwork involved with parents to kind of determine whether they go 504 special ed services. There's a lot of work that's front-loaded with that particular position. Anything else you'd like to add to an SBLC chairperson?
It is an astronomical task to be done correctly because you do not want to let kids fall through the cracks. So it's a proactive and it's a reactive committee of people who are trying to figure out what kids need before they fall too far behind. And so you're meeting with teachers, you're meeting with parents, you're doing a lot of paperwork with copying letters. And then once you have a meeting, you invite those parents in, you have the teachers come in. So you're also sending out emails to teachers so that you can line up somebody to watch their classes if need be while they're in there. And then once all of that is done, you have the meeting with the parent, you come up with a plan. Y'all have heard the term a 504 plan, or you end up needing to test them for special ed, or all of that is discussed and documented in these meetings. And then after the meetings are done, you have to have someone input everything into the computer with all of your documentation and then send any kind of follow-up of testing that needs to be done. So because of that meeting, you may end up needing to do some screenings, and then after those, so someone has to do those, then after those screenings are done, you re-meet with parents and teachers to divulge the findings of those. So it's a process that continues on, and then even once you, like, let's say you put a child into the 504 program, they have a plan, you have to watch that to see, is it working, is it not working? You have to have more communication and then redo paperwork if it's not.
Okay, so I have some follow-up questions on that.
The point person for all of that.
So the C stands for committee rather than counselor or
Yeah,
coordinator?
school building level
So it's
committee.
more than one person?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. How many people are we talking about
This
per school?
would be one
Thi-
person that would be the chairperson of that committee.
So you're just paying the chairperson?
Yes,
You're not
ma'am.
paying
Yes, ma'am.
the other
Just the
people on the
chair.
committee?
Just the chair.
Right.
Okay. And it's only for elementary schools?
No.
So you're going to do it for every school?
And a lot of that work
It's a
is
little heavier
done.
at times in elementary.
Sure. There's
As the
more
diagnoses are being determined. Typically, sometimes, it's different things at high school.
Okay.
Uh,
Well, it seems like if it's really a committee, that there should be others paid on, a stipend for their participation in, I mean, just saying, if it's that
So for
intense.
some that are on the committee, though, Ms. Benoit, there could be a psychologist or a speech pathologist, people that typically are maybe not.
that's their
assi-
responsibility.
Right, it's during the
Okay.
workday.
It's during the
Whereas
workday.
the person doing a lot of the paperwork, it has to be done after hours. There's no way you can do that during your
Okay.
workday.
I understand. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Two quick questions. Number one, I think I know the answer, but I just want to be sure. The stipends, the dollar amounts on the stipends that you have listed, that's a yearly total?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I thought that's what it was.
Yes, sir.
The other question, I want to go back to the 45-minute unencumbered statement before. So if a teacher, you said, has a time off period or a planning period, and they're not able to get that, unencumbered by having to take a class, then that qualifies for the $30 an or the $34 an hour, $30
If you have
an
to
hour.
cover a
yeah.
class, or is that what you, yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to assume that in general, an administrator or principal would, they would generally be aware of those instances. In other words, this isn't going to be an instance where a teacher can come up, say, a week later and say, oh, by the way, Mrs. So-and-so, I didn't get my 45-minute time off. I need to fill out a form.
Correct. Typically, not typically, but what would happen, the principal would assign that teacher to cover the class. So that administrator will definitely be
Aware of it.
aware of it, because they'll be assigning. So
Okay.
their first line of response is get a substitute teacher. So it's typically when a sub is not available
Mhm.
that we have to come up with creative ways to cover
Sure.
kids. This
Okay.
would be one of them.
Okay. Yeah, so I guess basically what I was asking is, this is not something that's haphazard. It's something that's usually for
Very
a
well
reason,
coordinated, yes, sir.
defined, coordinated.
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
All right, thank you.
Mr. LaGuardia?
Yeah, one quick question. How did you come up with the money? Because I think LEAP coordinators do more work than SBLC, you know, as being both of them.
So, good question. So the question is how we sat and discussed it and discussed workloads, what we felt, even with principals. We had them there, we ran these by, we talked through it with ERC. We gave them the template already, kind of feel, any concerns, and it seemed to be reasonable, and I understand what you're saying, but this made sense to us when we were kind of doing this.
That LEAP coordinator, a lot of work, you know, more than SBLC.
Yeah, and that's why the thing about more work, it's concentrated at one time of year, where SBLC is kind of all year long. That's kind of what we use to kind of make our decision on that.
LEAP, it concentrate, but you working before you get to those tests. And then you working once they over. You don't just start working the week after, you know, when the state have the test. You be to work weeks before that, you know, and the pay is way different. But just my opinion, you know, I don't
Okay.
think SBLC should be that much over the LEAP test coordinator, because that's a lot of work.
And
I done done
based
both
on,
of them.
I understand,
If I-
yes,
if
and
I
based on
can-
what you said, we kind of, I mean, you can see we put it higher than the
Yeah.
other ones, but
It's
not
way
as high as this.
higher.
If I can interject for just a minute, I was SBLC chairperson, and I've been test coordinator at the same school over the years, small world. SBLC starts before school starts and doesn't finish until after school finishes, because it's a process that's ongoing. The SBLC coordinator is in charge of everything that moves in that committee. The committee is made up of specialists, screeners, speech teachers, psychologists, counselors, and different teachers depending on what child you're talking about. You're gonna invite the child teachers to come in to be part of that SBLC. So every meeting would be different teachers. But a test coordinator, now it's a crazy job, it's got a lot of responsibility, but it's more concise to a time period around testing. Not at the high school, because I never experienced high school. High school is a never-ending program. But in an elementary and middle school, you know, you're gonna test for a couple of weeks and you get ready for 2-3 weeks ahead of time, and you finish up a week later. A couple of months, I was finished with the testing. It wasn't a year-long thing, in my experience.
Yes, ma'am. And Mr. Legore, to your point, we kind of took that into consideration, so we kind of subdivided it out to ACT, then work keys, like each one has its own stipend built in. The ELT coordinator, which is, you know, a very important test, but it's a short little window, you know, just like Leap Connect, same thing, short window.
Mr. Ford.
So,
I'm
This-
sorry, were you finished, sir?
oh,
I
this
apologize.
may go without saying, but do these 45 minutes have to be in a row?
No, sir.
Okay, because there's gonna be
It's,
times.
it's the equivalent of.
The equivalent,
Yes, sir.
okay, could be 15 minutes here, 20 minutes there.
But if we do that, we better catch them up on Friday. It's within the week.
Okay, so it's within, that's what I want to make sure. All right, thank you.
Ms. Cloche?
And I just have one point of clarity. When Mr. Crowder was talking, he talked about the unencumbered time being paid at the rate of $30 an hour. But actually, that's being paid at the rate of what their salary
Right.
is, not the $30.
The planning time
Right,
piece, yes,
that's
sir.
a correction, I thought
Yes.
that too.
Ms. Benoit?
Yeah. So previously, these people that were prom sponsor and graduation sponsor were not paid at all.
We didn't pay them anything?
So, yeah, this is huge.
Yeah.
They need this compensation.
I agree.
A long time overdue. And it's strange that the legislators thought of this.
Well, I think teachers kind of,
Yeah.
kind of express their concerns about it. And,
Yeah. Great.
Any other board members? Any objections? None heard, so ordered. Item number 2.
Number two, we have for you this page here. We have 3 options. And I want to, again, I want to commend Curtis for his diligence with seeking the self-insurance route of student insurance. He did a lot of work meeting with some companies that are here tonight to kind of discuss some of these proposals. Our recommendation, but we want you to make the recommendation after you kind of hear Curtis's explanation, but before you do, our recommendation is number 3. So we have a recommendation, option 1, 2, and 3. We're feeling 3 is in our best interest, but we want you to kind of just hear the 3 options out, and then we'll come up with our formal decision for the recommendation.
Thank you, sir. The options are, and these are going to be up to you as to what you feel like is best. Option 1 is another fully insured plan. On the spreadsheet, it will show the original plan. That's what was originally presented to the board and was a cost of $182,000. Again, this plan covers each student, each and every student, and volunteers who come to our school, maybe do grandparent reading or something like that. If an accident happens, up to $25,000 supplemental to their health insurance. For athletes, there's a catastrophic policy that's attached to it in case of a really bad, like a neck injury or something like that. Option 1 would be a fully insured plan underwritten by Pan American of $157,824. That includes a $6 million catastrophic plan. Option 2 is a self-insured retention. That SIR means self-insured retention. That's $25,000 on us. We would pay that full $25,000. If we go over that, then it would be a catastrophic that would kick in. And we're also, with that plan, it has what's called an aggregate. That aggregate guarantees that when we're paying $25,000 for this kid, $25,000 for that kid, we won't go over a total of $120,000. The yellow depicts an average year. So we took the last 5 years, averaged them out. Your average years is about $73,000. So with plan option 2, you're paying a premium. That's for that aggregate, and then you're paying an admin fee of $30,000. Then you have that catastrophic. Then you look at all the claims. If it's a claim of year of $73,000, your total's going to be $127,000. However, if you go over $120,000, the most we would pay is $174,000. That's with the line up the green. Option 3 is an SIR with no aggregate. In other words, you have a self-insured retention. We pay everything up to $25,000. Then we have a catastrophic that would kick in. But if we have more than $120,000 in claims, we're going to pay more than $120,000.
But again, our average has been what?
73.
For
The
the
most
last
we've had-
4 years, you said?
Right.
Okay.
And last year, I think it was 102,000. That was our highest year.
Okay.
102,000.
All right.
We have with us the two gentlemen who have been with us for a long time, working through the different insurance companies, Mr. Bobby Horn, Mr. Mark Harris, who have been represented, they're here, and also Mr. Buster Kinney from Gulf South Risk is also here. Those are the people we have taken quotes from. And if you have any questions for them, I'm sure they'll be happy to answer it.
Got a question for Curtis.
Mr. DeBoard?
Curtis, I'm looking at all three options, and my concern is the limits of 1 million. I know that Gulf South Services, for example, that's where that's at, and the others is 6 million. And I know what you said the average is, but what I'm saying is that if we insure all of the students and everything in there, why would we lower the thing from 6 million to 1 million?
We didn't lower it. We didn't lower it. It was always been 1 million. The gentleman from, with the other plan increased theirs to 6 million.
And that's for catastrophic,
Right.
catastrophic
I know,
coverage.
but you never know what's gonna happen.
Yeah.
Right.
And
We've
I'm
al-
just saying,
the
I like to have
catastrophic is
enough
al-
coverage to where,
The catastrophic has always been 1 million, okay? They went out and got a quote to where they can get 6 million. Now, Gulf South did give me other quotes for 8 million and up to 15 million, but of course, that keeps raising the premium the higher you go up.
you pay for what you get whenever you're talking about insurance. I like to be protected, I'm just saying, and I know it's apples and oranges or grapefruits, whatever, but whenever we had this storm, our $10 million went like that. I like to be covered as well as I can. And it's a reasonable, all three options are reasonable. But what I'm saying is that I just don't like lowering the threshold of 1 million to 6 million. From 6, they offered 6 million instead of 1, even though we had 1 million before. Thank God we didn't have to worry about that in the past. That's all I have right now.
Any other questions? Mr. Ford?
So we all know that insurance is a necessary evil. Nobody likes paying insurance. I certainly don't. And as a board, we have to, right? So it's one of those things that if we're being good stewards of the people's money, we need to sometimes, we have risk management. That's why Mr. Curtis has a job. That's why Gulf South is in business, to manage those risks. So if you look back historically, if I'm correct, we've never had anything approach or exceed the $1 million catastrophic event.
Right.
I do know school districts that have, very close to us. So it's one of those things that we've had to, take a gamble. But right now, with this economy, and this, let's remember, this was all brought up because we were paying far too much in premiums, and it's taking away money that we can use for our students and for student programs, and, we got to rob Peter to pay Paul in this sense, right? So in this instance, I think we already have a relationship with Gulf South. They're local. Now, if we want to, we can always go back to them and say, let's look at something more than $1 million, but I like what they're bringing to the table. There's no premium. There's a flat rate of $30,000 administrative fee, and then we foot the bill for anything that we go over, from that point. If we're looking at statistics and we're looking at trends and data analysis, I think we're in a good position to say this is the best program, best plan, because traditionally we haven't exceeded, or we've averaged at that $73,000 mark. We could have a bad year, we could have a stellar year, but it's just one of those things that we're going to have to do to manage and consider that risk. As stewards of the people's money, I think it's a good investment to pay that flat $30,000 administrative fee, let them deal with whatever comes up, and if it, hopefully we don't exceed that dollar amount or anything more than we have in the past, and then maybe next year, look at it again.
Ms. Kojal?
Yeah, Mr. Curtis, thank you for your work. I appreciate that. I know it's not easy. What triggers the catastrophic money?
Going
What
in,
dollar amount?
going in excess of the 25,000.
So once you get up to
And it has to
25,000,
be-
we got it. If it's 25,000 and $3, the catastrophic coverage comes in.
The other gentleman here can correct me if I'm wrong, but basically, it has to also be an athlete. Or we have it, not just athlete, but we have it for band members, cheerleaders, dance squad.
Coach,
For instance, if you're, huh?
coaches,
No, coaches, they gotta go with our insurance.
okay. They just better not be hit by a lineman. That's all. They gotta get out the way.
But
Okay.
if,
Kids on the
if it's, for instance, a cheerleader, they
Right.
throw them up in the air all the time.
Yeah.
I get more worried about them.
Yeah, me too.
Bands marching in a Memorial Parade and a car comes through the crowd and hits them.
Right.
It covers them too, but basically, on the average student,
Medical field.
they running out in the yard, they trip over a butterfly, it's 25,000.
Yeah, a broken bone or something like that as opposed to, but the $25,000 mark, once you reach that, then the catastrophic coverage pulls in.
Would you like to have any questions from either Mr. Horn or Mr. Kinney? Mr. Horn?
Anyone over there?
Bobby? You want to come up and say anything?
That's the same, all three, it's the same.
Mr. Horn is representing Bollinger and
Mark Harris, and this.
he is presenting the options of option 1 and option 2.
It's a different vendor.
You know, you asked a question about the catastrophic. Your 25,000, the first part we call that the base. That's where you look at the first 25,000 and you go into the catastrophic. On our proposal, there's a deductible you have to meet, which is the 25,000 and go into the catastrophic. Our definition is integrated, which means it doesn't have to be paid. In other words, a kid has a claim, they've had $15,000 that's paid, and he has other bills, then that's all included, even though they're not paid on, because his insurance paid it. You put those two together to get called an integrated deductible, we get into your 25,000 of the catastrophic. On our plans, on our self-funded plans, we have LSU, UL, Tulane, Diocese of Lake Charles, Diocese of Alexandria. And this year, we merged the K through 12 is what we're considered here together. And that's how we were able to pick up Pan American and lower our fully funded premium. It's hot out there. Is heat exhaustion and heat stroke covered? It's covered under our plan. Most of them just have one or the other, but it gets hot out there. It's gonna be a lot hotter in August when they start playing.
That's his premium.
We have, now this is a secondary plan. So last year, and let's take 2022, 23, we had 1,200 claims. So our company had to process 1,200 claims. Only 383 of them were paid on, but you still got to process those 1,200 claims. And the first year, you have to, and that's why we put a cap on ours. You're not going to have all your claims paid in the first year. You're going to have, lucky if you get 50%. Because you look at 2022, 2020, at the, and I have the paperwork, if I'll give it to Curtis if you want to see it. We had 67,000 in claims. That's at the end of 2022, 23. We ran our renewal this year, and we pulled the claims in 2023, and it jumped up to 102,000. So in the first year of the plan, you had only half the claims. It takes normally a 3-year payout for all the claims that go through because it's excess. You got to get this from the parent. You have to get this for the parent. Our benefit period on our base plan, not the catastrophic, is a 2-year payout. What that means, if from the date of injury, the child has 2 years, the athlete, to go ahead and incur charges. Reason why we put that in, 1 year, we had a football player got hurt, had pins put in his leg. And we had a 1-year payout. And at the end of that 12 months, he went in to get the pin out, but it was a 1-year payout and he didn't have coverage.
Right.
So Mr. Moore said, let's go ahead and put a 2-year payout. That goes ahead and takes care of anything out there. But with a cap, you can have 60,000 this year, you can have 60,000 next year, but you can have that 60,000 from this year show up next year. That's like, we had 67,000, we ended up with 102 the following year. And that's why we like the cap, because you're gonna have claims coming in from this year to this year to this year. So it's a little deceiving if you say, we've only had claims of 60,000. Well, we got claims coming in from last year that we have to look at because we have a 2-year guarantee. So that's why we have, and I think, let's see, our catastrophic, Curtis had asked, yeah, your catastrophic, on our catastrophic, it's $6 million, a 10-year benefit period, and it's excess. Same thing, you gotta process the claims with your 25,000 deductible that's integrated with the $6 million benefit. Also, we have an athletic disability of 500,000. You have an athlete gets hurt, and I've had 7 of them in my days where we've had broken necks. You got $6 million for the medical. That's great. But when this child comes home, will his wheelchair fit through the doors? Or they're gonna have to get a van. So after 6 months of disability, we start paying on that 500,000 for them to widen the doors, get a lift. So when that kid comes home, there's a lift for it. And I have a connection for the catastrophic with Baylor University and Shepherd in Atlanta, Georgia, where I have a pipeline. I can call either one of those and we can get the kid in. But the problem you have with this, you got a 17-year-old kid that's a paraplegic. We have 500,000 worth of benefit going to it. We can't pay a minor. Who's gonna sit with the parent and explain to them, you know, we have to get a trust. We have to get a trust in your son's name so we can start paying you some of this money. Now, I don't know how this school board works, but all the other ones I had, the school attorney says, don't send someone to talk to him right away. Send the superintendent. He says, don't worry about it. We got it all covered. You just covered it all. So I work with the parents, get all that done, and I've had some pretty good friends that I've made out of this. And why do you have this? You know, I tell people to prevent a lawsuit. You're going to get a lawsuit if this happens. But you can't recoup something they've already had. We have this right here for them. They can't want to recoup medical bills because we're paying medical bills. I had Orleans Parish and I had the attorney tell the parent, don't sign anything. We had registered letters, registered everything, met with the mediator, because you're going to meet with a mediator first. And the mediator asked that parent, why didn't you fill out these claim forms? And he just looked at him and said, because my attorney told me not to. Well, we know where that one went. So I've just got enough experience with it. That's what the cap is for. And under the catastrophic, we still cover special events, intramural sports, and campers. Now we talk about campers. I'm not talking about people going camping. Where do your cheerleaders go? Big thing is, let's go to Ole Miss. So you pack a van up, if you get permission, and I suggest you do written permission, if a parent's gonna drive and follow the coach, make sure they get permission and they under your authority to do it. That way they considered under the system of the school board. I had a van get hit from behind, shoved under an 18-wheeler going to Lake Charles. We were able to take care of that. We have coverage for motor vehicle accidents. About 5 years ago, I don't know if you remember, if y'all were still around, we had a bus got hit from behind. We packed up, they brought 25 of them to the emergency room, to a K-Dana ambulance. Half of them didn't go, the ones that went. Then you're looking at $3,500. What I was able to do was go meet with a K-Dana ambulance. Here's my company offer. Let us pay you $500 for all of them. We'll write you one check. Could you help the school board and just charge $500, which they did. It's, I've been doing this a long time. I know the ins and outs of it. I'm not guessing at anything. The numbers we gave you are good numbers. So we do have more coverage than just athletes on it. And on the base, you know, when you look at we cover bereavement counseling, non-enrolled campers, special events, and volunteers. When Mr. Moore was here, we wanted $50,000 for volunteer. And what is a volunteer? Especially in your softball, baseball, parents, we need somebody to work in a concession stand. We need somebody in football. Can you come? We need somebody, I don't know if they let the lay people hold the markers for the first downs. So that covers all volunteers up to $50,000 with the 2-year benefit period. So there's a lot more that we cover, especially with the bereavement and trauma counseling. We put that in because of the concussion rules that the state has now. So that's basically what we do. Tulane trusts us, UF trusts us, LSU trusts us, the diocese trusts us, and I was hoping maybe y'all could trust us.
I have a question for you.
Mr. Cloutier has the floor.
You said that you had 1,200 claims that you processed, but you only paid on 383, I believe.
Yes.
Who paid the rest?
Well, it's secondary.
So their own insurance paid the rest?
Secondary is you file with your insurance.
Right.
We get the claim. Claim has to be filed within 90 days. Then we have to wait for the parent's insurance to pay. That may take, what, 3, 4 months, 4 months? Because you got, this kid gets hurt, he's got to go to the hospital, he's got to.
Yeah, I know, I was just trying to, in my mind, figure out what happened to the rest of those claims.
Well, because when we look at him, his insurance paid everything, when we
Okay.
look at it. But still have to process it to
Right.
see should we pay. But
Right.
that was $1,200 claims, and 383 were, well, 1,262 claims were processed in 2023.
Okay.
It's for your $102,000. It's that's, but you still, it's excess, so you have to process every claim to look at it.
Well, yeah, obviously you do,
Whether
yeah.
you should
I was
pay.
just wondering how the rest were paid. I mean, I know you don't just go, sorry, we're not paying, you know.
No, we don't deny them, it's just,
Yeah,
and the other thing you have to look at is, we got a percentage of minorities in this parish. I think you're looking at around 70% minorities. If you have a minority on Medicaid or some government program, we're primary to that.
right.
Any government program, we're primary for. So it all depends who has a claim. You can have a child on Medicaid, you have a big claim, and we gotta pay the whole thing. There's just a lot of variables that we've had to look at to see how we can come up with this rate, and that was taken into consideration. In some years, we were lucky. And what we were able to do 4 or 5 years ago is tweak the benefits a little bit because they were too rich. And that helped us bring the claims down. Because we look at them every year, here's the benefits, here's what we need to change, but we still have kept the coverage, and you still have a 2-year rate guarantee with everything, so next year you guarantee your rates are not gonna change.
And so you're doing option 1 and option 2, both of those?
Correct.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Ms. Bidwell.
Any other questions?
No questions.
Okay.
Thank you. My comment is that I understand all the information that you gave us. A lot of what you presented tonight were anecdotal situations of what you've paid on in the past, not necessarily in our district, but in Tulane, UL, diocese. We have to make a decision here, not based on that. We have to make a decision based on our data. And as Mr. Ford said, our data shows that we're paying more for insurance than what we actually pay out on claims. And it doesn't make sense, in my opinion, for us to continue to do that. I think it's worth, for at least this year, to look at taking the risk of staying with option 3. I understand that. I understand that. But we are insurance poor. I mean, if you looked at the meetings that we've had for property insurance and other, we have paid an ungodly amount of money for insurance. I know.
I understand, and if you don't.
But what I'm,
If your parish is not on the Mississippi River, all the rest of my parishes, like, you know, the Foods Parish, Dandypool Parish, all those other ones, that's not along the river, they going through the same thing that you just said.
Yeah.
So we can experience that. That's why we're trying to get the premiums down the best.
I understand. Yeah, but you're a salesman, you know, for a policy that, and we need to look at what we're paying and how to save money for this district, because we have other ways to spend money besides insurance. Thank you.
And I respect whatever decision you go.
Mr. Crowders?
Thank you. So I'm kind of looking at this and I'm trying to figure out, for me, the question is I'm kind of wondering why we would want a policy, I guess, with no cap. If you just look at option 1 and you look at the premium of 157.8 and you look at our average of expenditures, which well, I think we were going to round up to like 100,000 just as an average, just to make it easy math. Right then and there, we're looking at 257.8 for premium and payouts. Now that's a no cap option, correct?
No,
Option 1?
Mine has a $120,000 cap.
On option 1.
Option 2. Option 1 is fully funded. Option 1, you give us the 151 plus the catastrophic, and you don't worry about a thing, we pay everything. Option 2 is your partially self-funded plan.
Okay, so you're saying on option 1, we pay you the 157.8, we don't worry about a dime extra?
Correct.
Okay, so option 2 is a cap plan. You got a 38,000, let's see, you got an 18 and a 30, which makes a 38, and then you got another 6, which makes a 144, which makes 44. And then you got our average expenditures of 100,000, so we're at 164 on that, roughly.
Correct.
So plan 1 is about 157.8. Plan 2, if we spend the average of 100,000 each year, plus the premiums, we're looking at 164.5. Option 3, we've got 30,000 and 8,000, so 38 for a premium, but we got no cap. Our average is 100,000. Now we're at 138.6. Did those numbers? Does that make a little
I just know
sense?
the first 2 is mine. I'm not.
Oh,
I don't
you're
have-
not with the
I don't
third one.
have
I'm
privy
sorry.
to number 3, so I can't comment.
So I guess what I'm saying is for option 3, we're at a premium of 38.6. We average a payout of about 100,000 in claims each year. We're at 138.6, but option 3 leaves us, there's no cap there. Which means if we have a bad year, we can go well above that.
And it's rolling, so the second year you can have more, the third year.
Whereas, okay, so option 1, we're fully covered at 157.8. We don't pay a dime more regardless of what happens. Is that what you just said?
Yes.
Okay. Option 2, we're at 164.5. we're at 164.5 on premiums, average claims, and then you gotta add that, well, the 120 cap would be no more than 120 in claims, right?
Correct.
Okay, so let's do 120, so that's the 164, and then option 3 is at 138.6, but with no cap. Is that about right? Does that sound
Well,
my summary?
I haven't seen option 3, so I can't comment on that.
Okay.
I just comment on the 2 I presented.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Ford.
Although I appreciate all the information he provided and educating us on the policies that they're offering and what they're offering, I have a lot more faith in our legal counsel than I do in any insurance company. And what they're talking about is if we get in a situation where we need to pay out, we're also going to be dealing with legal fees. We're going to have legal counsel that's going to be dealing with that, going into arbitration. I think we're in a situation now, like Debbie said, we're insurance poor. You guys have seen over the last 4 months, we've passed so many expenditures on insurance. It's probably a third of what we're paying in salaries each year, for at least for our teachers, the people that are in the school system. And I know this is going to be taken the wrong way, but I'm going to say it anyway because this is really what I believe in. When you take place and participate in those sporting activities, whether it's football, whether it's band, whether it's cheerleading, you know there's a certain level of risk that you're putting your children in. I did it my entire life. I've been an athlete, not just as a child, but as an adult. When I participate in sporting activities, there's a certain level of risk I'm taking on. We have alumni tournament every year. We have somebody gets hurt every year. They have to make insurance claims, but they have insurance. I am concerned about situations where we have students that don't have insurance because we kept hearing about their insurance may be primary or even if they have Medicaid, Medicare. There's kids on our campuses that don't have insurance whatsoever. We have people that have just moved to this area that don't have insurance. My concern is for those people. We do have a responsibility to those people taking place and participating in those athletics and extracurricular activities. But like I said, this is something that they let their kid get in, and there's a certain degree of risk. We as a board understand there's a certain level of risk that we're taking on also. But if every year we keep spending money for the what ifs, then at some point in time we've spent more than we could have done to enrich our school system, our students. So I think this is a good move for us to consider this self-insured with that base premium. And if we see next year that maybe it wasn't a good idea, we can come back and revisit it. And you guys can tell me I'm wrong. I welcome you to do so. But I'm pretty confident I'm right. I usually am. So that's all I'll say about that.
Before we move on, anybody have any questions about
Mr.
Mr.
DeHart
Kenny?
still wanted to speak.
I got a question for you.
Yes, sir.
You got more knowledge about this stuff than I do, but I'm looking at option 2 and option 3. And what catches my attention, Curtis, is that self-insured up to 120,000 in claims with that $6 million thing at the end. And then the other one is with no cap, which is very attractive, just, with that verbiage, but at the same time, limits of 1 million. I'm still confused on that. Can you help me out a little?
What it means is exactly kind of what Mr. Horn had
Well-
expressed. If you go over, if there's an athlete,
Yeah,
intramural sports, regular sports, and it's a very serious condition, we have the $25,000 we have to pay up front, and then
Right.
after that, they would take over up
Right.
to, one will either go up to $1 million in health benefits. Now
Yeah.
they want to go up to 6 million.
Yes.
We've always done 1 million, but we've never even approached that. And they just sweeten the pot to go up to 6.
Yeah. But medical costs to date is a lot different, and it keeps increasing
Right,
year
but
after
remember,
year.
it's in excess,
Well,
so whatever the parents'
I understand.
insurances are paid.
And- But if we ever get caught with one student that doesn't have insurance, I'm just trying to look thorough and trying to make the right decision. Okay, thank you.
Would you have any questions for Mr. Kenny on option 3? Are you good? Okay, thank you.
Any more questions? So I guess at this point, do we have a motion?
Do we have a recommendation?
Yes. I would like to recommend that as a board, we adopt option 3, which is the committee recommends that the board approve and accept the proposal from Gulf South Risk Services, 250 Barrow Street, Houma, Louisiana, 70360, as a third-party administrator for student accident insurance, including volunteer workers with limits of $25,000 per accident, with an administrative fee of $30,000 and a catastrophic athletic accident insurance underwritten by Mutual of Omaha with limits of $1 million, with an annual premium in the amount of $8,613.49, effective August 1st, 2024 through July 31st, 2025.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Benoit, moved by Mr. Ford. Any public comment? Any further comment, Mr. Ford? Ms. Benoit? Any further comment, any other board members? Any objections?
I object.
Mr. DeHart objects, Mr. Crowder objects. Any other objections? 2 objections, the motion passes. Having no more business to come between before the special school board meeting of Tuesday, July 16th, 2024, the meeting stands adjourned. The following, as soon as we get set up, will be Buildings Committee.